Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, world. Welcome once again to Tuesday Talk with Key West Lou. I am your host, Louis Patron. I have been doing this show now for about 3 years. I love doing it, obviously, and I appreciate the fact that those of you who listen do listen to me on a regular basis. When I first started, I was concerned, what am I going to talk about? Where are the topics going to come from? And I have found over 3 years that topics are the easiest thing. So many things are happening worldwide, whether in this country or the entire globe, that are things that are newsworthy and should be discussed every day. I try to open the door, so to speak, and enlighten with regard to things that the national media does not share with us. Make you aware of what's going on. And there's just a ton of material out there because we live in a screwed up, crazy world. I wish to start the show tonight talking about Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden. He's had a bad time this week. He's had a bad time his whole life, as I will point out to you. His 47-year-old son, Beau, died of brain cancer. Now, we all know a parent should not bury a child. It's just the worst of the worst. But his problems, his pain, his suffering goes way beyond just losing Beau. When he had just become a United States Senator, I think it was sometime in the 70s, his wife and his daughter were killed in an automobile accident. Yep. His wife and his daughter were killed in an automobile accident. Here was a young man, young family, new to the United States Senate, a week or two into it, and his wife and daughter were killed in an automobile accident. And his son, Beau, who just died this weekend, was severely injured in that accident. Along the way, also, about 20 years ago, Joe Biden had a tumor of the brain. And they had to operate, and he was laid up for quite a while. So here is a man that's been tempered by pain and suffering. He has been strengthened by pain and suffering. And I just think he's a good guy, not because of all this, but how he's conducted himself over the years also. I got to know Joe Biden in the 1980s. And not in a political way. And by the way, I haven't seen him since the 1980s, so we understand each other. But for several years in the 1980s, we were sort of intimate. I was chairman of the board at the Syracuse University College of Law. I had graduated in 1960. Biden, I believe, graduated in 1967. When he became a United States Senator, he was our most famous graduate, okay? And we leaned on him. We asked him to be helpful to the law school. In my position as chairman, I worked very closely with two deans, and he was very cooperative. He would show up for all kinds of affairs. If we needed something, he would make sure things got done, and he greased the way for us. And I remember him well. Cooperation was the key, and he was a regular guy, absolutely regular guy. I had a private box at the Carrier Dome, and I used to go to watch football games and basketball games. It was rather large, 16 seats, a refrigerator, bathroom, 2 bars, 2 waitresses, hors d'oeuvres, the whole works. And every time he was in town, he would come to watch the basketball or football game from my box. That in and of itself is not important. What's important is each time he showed up, he was with 2 of his classmates from law school who were still practicing law in Syracuse, and they were with him every time. Now, they graduated maybe 20 years before, and here he is. Every time he comes to Syracuse, he's with these guys. These were his buddies from law school. These were his buddies for life. And I just thought that was unique in the man and special. And now we tie in this family tragedies and so forth. I think he would have made a great president. He's never going to have the chance. He's 71 years old. They say this is Hillary's time. It's inevitable. I don't know if it's inevitable. It may appear that way, but I don't know. But in any event, he is a friend of a friend, and he's not sticking his head out. The Clintons are his friends, and he's saying, look, it's your show, Hillary. So he'll never achieve that job, that position. I think he'd make a great president. He spent so many years in the Congress and the Senate. He knows everyone. He knows how to negotiate. He knows how to sit down and work things out. Obama has used him on occasion, both with Republicans and Democrats, to get things done, and he's gotten them done. And I believe we need a man in the White House who knows how to sit down and negotiate. You can't always have war over issues. You got to sit down face to face and say, here's what I want, here's what you want, what can we do? Let us find the middle ground. I believe he'd be that kind of president. Never going to get the chance. I would hope that if there's an opportunity on the Supreme Court, a vacancy, some president, whether Obama or whoever the next Democratic president is, would appoint him, assuming Biden wants to remain in Washington and participate in the glories of government. I just wanted to share with you the little bit I knew about him. This is just a good guy. This is a regular guy who spent 35, 40 years as United States Senator, really has known no other job, and has had major calamity, though, with his family. Sad. Moving on now, we're going to go to Ecuador. Ecuador. How do I start this? Ecuador. We in the United States are at a stage where we're trying to legalize marijuana. It's happened in many states so far. The move is underway to legalize it throughout the United States, and at some point it will. We're talking merely marijuana, no other drugs. And it's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's just like same-sex marriage. If anyone said 10 years ago we would have same-sex marriage today, you would have told them they were crazy. But we have same-sex marriage today, and I think by the time the Supreme Court gets done this year, it's going to be all the states. It's going to be national. Well, Ecuador is in the process of legalizing not just marijuana. They are legalizing all drugs, cocaine, heroin, the whole works. Now, let me tell you why they're doing this. One other nation has done it, Portugal. Portugal did it in 2001. Now, Portugal's had terrific success. They legalized everything, and they thought it would work, and it did work. And here's why. The number of drug-related deaths has dropped in 14 years. The number of juvenile drug addicts has dropped. The number of people doing drugs in general has dropped. And the number of infectious disease from dirty needles has dropped. The most important thing, though, and this is an issue we're discussing in America today, in the United States, crime in general, because there's a periphery there of areas, tangents running off just the use of drugs, where people steal because they want drugs and everything else. So you got a lot of crimes being committed. Portugal has closed many of their prisons. They shut them down completely. Why? Because since they said drugs were legal, there's not enough crime being committed. Don't ask me why. I can only give you as an example what has happened in Portugal. Prisons are a big deal in the United States. As you are aware, we in this country have more people incarcerated than the next 5 nations in the world together. Now, that's an absolute disgrace. More importantly, we're in a time where government can't afford to be government. Everyone's trying to cut corners, and the move is underway now to delegalize victimless crimes, not to send people to jail for a long time, because with regard to drugs, 20 years ago you had a half an ounce of pot in your pocket. You did 20 years you're sentenced to. And these people did 20 years and are still in prison, a lot of them. Some for life for different things. But they were victimless type crimes. It costs the governments, whether it's federal or state, $85,000 a year on the average to keep someone in jail. $85,000 a year, and we've got all these people in jail. Now you wonder why they want to delegalize a lot of stuff and keep people out of jail, because it costs the taxpayers too much money. Our politicians don't know where to come up with the dough, and so forth. And it has been proven in Portugal that they had to close down jails, so this might not be a bad idea. Ecuador's into it now. My question is, why aren't we into this to some degree? We're having a hell of a time in this country legalizing marijuana in all the states. All right? You've got your Republican right. You've got conservative America who think this is evil, this is bad, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to lead to people shooting heroin and cocaine and crack and all this sort of stuff. And I don't think it really does, quite frankly. I know a lot of pot users. They're normal business people every day, but they smoke a joint on occasion. All I'm trying to say is we're talking about something that Portugal did the whole thing on, and Ecuador is in the process. They went out and determined if they legalized drugs, all drugs, it would help them, and it has helped Portugal. I believe it's going to help in Ecuador. And will we ever learn? Will our Pontius people, will our holier than thous in this country open their eyes and realize things aren't always the way they see them? There is another view, another point of view, another side to the story. This week in Conch Life, which today's Tuesday, it will be published tomorrow. It comes out tomorrow. My article is Corruption of Politics and Banks. Corruption of Politics and Banks. And it's very simple. Money. Money is the corruption of politics, government, banks, etc. We all know money is the root of all evil. We've been told that from the day we were born, and it is true. We know money corrupts. Okay, what's the solution? I gave a solution. My article is to say, I have a solution. Listen to Lewis, he has a solution. With regard to politics, I limited my talk, my story, my presentation merely to presidential elections. Because if I had to deal with everything, Congress, local governors, local politics, I'd be writing 50 weeks of articles, which people would be bored with. I want to make a point. And I made it with presidential elections. And I said, look, let's stop donating money, using individual money, using bank money, using big corporation money to fund political campaigns, even the presidency, because these people are trying to acquire influence. They want to influence the way our government moves. They want to influence the laws as to how they are going to be made. And we all know this is wrong. This is the 1% controlling the 99% in a way never considered by our founding fathers. So I said, let us have public funding of presidential campaigns. In other words, the government pays each candidate, the Democrat and the Republican, X number of dollars for the campaign, the same amount. Limit our elections also to 3 months, by the way. We had a year and a half of this stuff on TV. I'm getting sick of it already. So now we publicly fund it. No personal contributions, corporate contributions can be used, none of your own money, just what the government gives you. You have to understand, it has been projected that the cost of the next presidential election, next year, 2016, is going to be in excess of $1 billion for each candidate. For each candidate, in excess of $1 billion. Now, we have had in this country some experience with public funding. Maine does it. They don't do it completely, but they do it more and better than anyone else. Phoenix has done it. It's been a failure in some areas, a success in others, but this is all on a minimal scale. There have been a lot of failures. One of the problems is every time somebody comes up with this public funding idea, the United States Supreme Court has found it unconstitutional for some reason. Let me give you an example of what I think is stupid. This I think is stupid on our part. Public funding that really shouldn't be today. We all watch the presidential conventions, the nominating conventions. Next year, the Democrat convention and the Republican convention. Big arena, thousands of people wearing party hats, straw hats, balloons, confetti, signs, people, marches, bands up and down the aisle, yelling and screaming, parties in the rooms off the arena, parties in the hotel. Well, let me tell you something, my friends. Do you know who pays for this? Do you know who pays for the political conventions? Not the party, not the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party. The United States government for years. I don't know how Congress passed this and why whoever the president was signed it, but for years, each party gets every 4 years, each party gets $18.5 million, $18.5 million each to pay for the convention. Yes, that isn't paid by the Democrats or Republicans. It's paid by you and me, the taxpayers. And to rub salt in the wound, that $18.5 million, they also add on top of it the cost of income, a cost of income increase. Isn't that terrible? That's awful. Now, Teddy Roosevelt. That's all. We got to have public funding. Period. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's my suggestion. It's food for thought. Now let's talk about the breakup of the banks, Wall Street. Teddy Roosevelt, president in the early 1901 to 1909, in the early 1900s, was confronted with big companies that were screwing the hell out of the American people. It was everything for the major corporations, nothing for the working man. It was an extreme situation as it is today, okay? And Roosevelt said, we can't do this. We can't do this. And what did he do? He went out and took them all on. He sued more than 40 major corporations and busted them, okay? He busted them, and he succeeded based on antitrust laws. They violated antitrust laws. They couldn't be that big, and he broke up these companies, all right? He walked quietly and carried a big stick. He didn't get out there and say, I'm going to kill these guys. What he did was he killed them and then said, I killed them because I walked quietly and carried a big stick. Now, this is not uncommon in our history, in our modern history. Early in the 1980s, only 30 years ago, if it's that much, the Bell system. That was the name of the national telephone company. They had subsidiaries, but it was the Bell system. The Bell system in the 1980s was the largest corporation, not just in the United States, in the world. And again, it got too big for its britches. The government took them on, and they broke up the Bell system into I don't know how many little telephone companies. Everyone said, the telephone system's going to fall apart. Our phones won't work. Look where we're at today with telephone communication, all right? So we've done it. What do I think is going to happen with my idea here? Public funding, presidential elections, break up the banks. It's not going to happen. That's what bothers me. I can't conceive of it happening, though it should, because it requires Congress and the Supreme Court to accomplish both of these items. Congress and the Supreme Court, and we know that so far Congress and the Supreme Court close their eyes to these things. They close their eyes to the influence of money on government and in campaigns. They close their eyes to the banks who are screwing the American public and making tons of money to the detriment of the people and so forth. So far, I say no, but you never know. But I'm sharing it with you tonight as food for thought. Read my column in Conch Life. It runs starting tomorrow. It's on the streets in Key, all the Keys, and Thursday you can find it on my websites, Key West Lou and Louis Patrone. There is a link. You just press it and you can read the article if you are interested. We're going to Phoenix, Arizona this past weekend. This is stupid. There was an anti-Muslim rally in Phoenix, an anti-Muslim rally. There's a group that label themselves anti-Islam protesters, okay? And they decided on a specific day they were going to rally in front of the Islamic Community Center in Phoenix. Well, there are some people down there, too, in the Phoenix area that thought this was wrong. So you had a peace group come saying, you guys are wrong, you shouldn't do this. And by the way, the peace group was bigger than the protesters, as it turned out. The police had to come to keep both sides separated. They kept one group on one side of the street, one on the other. This protesting group is headed by a John Ritzheimer. He is the leader of the proclaimed anti-Islam activists. They have been described as biker scum, these people, as white supremacists. They're pro-free speech, they say. Their shirts are very offensive. Down with the Islams, get out of my country, all that sort of things. And they carry placards saying all kinds of nasty things about the Muslims. And understand, I think in many respects the Muslim community in this country has to be observed, not the whole community. There's a bunch of nuts here. We got ISIS over there. Everything's screwed up. So we have to be on our guard. But you can't say all of them are bad. You can't even say most of them are bad, okay? Anyhow, and they wave American flags, these protesters. Now, how did they get this thing going? The Internet. These people are brilliant, just like ISIS. They used Facebook, okay, to advertise what they were doing and to get members. Now, in the workup to the protest, the anti-Islamic group told people to bring their guns. Yes, bring your guns. There may be trouble and you may have to defend yourself. Would you believe that? And they also told people via Facebook, bring cartoons of Muhammad. Now, we all know the worst thing anyone can do is make a joke to the Muslim, to the Islamic religion, is to make a joke of their prophet, their leader, Muhammad, by showing him in a joking fashion. They'll kill you. They'll be a jihadist, and they'll come after you. And they told them to bring these cartoons. What do I think of all this? What do I think of the rally? What do I think of these protesters, these anti-Islamic protesters? And I'm going to tell you, I'm afraid of the Muslims. I'm afraid of the Islamic people because, boy, they're expanding greatly all over the world, and they get what they want, it seems. And I don't know, things are getting out of kilter, but still there are those that are entitled to have protections. There are those that are American citizens, etc. I call it pure, unadulterated provocation. Provocation. You cannot spit in someone's eye. They are going to spit in your eye back. That's the way it is in life, okay? This provocation by this nut group is wrong. It reminds me of Hitler and his stormtroopers there 10 years before he came to power. These people aren't in power, but 10 years before Hitler came to power, he's on the streets of the cities of Germany. Jewish storefronts broken down, people being beat up, terrible things happening. This to me sounds like Hitler when he started out, and he had no power. That's the Phoenix story right now. And Phoenix is a place where crazy people exist, by the way. And I'm not referring to Senator McCain. This is the place where they had the sheriff. He's still there, I think, where, he was a cowboy, this guy, and he took on all comers who he didn't like, and he arrested people, and he followed his own constitution. Not nice. Now we're going to Germany. I love what I'm going to share with you now. You're not going to believe me. I spoke with you last week about Germany and prostitution. And I said, in 2002, Germany legalized prostitution. Why did they do it? Because they could tax it. They knew they could tax it, and they're making a ton of money off taxing prostitution. No one dare prostitutes, whether organized in an apartment, in a building, or on the street, without paying a tax. You go to jail. This is like, Al Capone. They're going to put you in jail. These people pay their taxes. It isn't a big tax, but it's a profitable tax because there's a lot of prostitution going on in Germany now. Germany, as I suggested last week, I not even suggested, said to you, is the sex capital of the world. No longer Bangkok or Amsterdam. Berlin is the sex capital of the world. Well, I pointed out last week, my whole purpose in getting into this last week was that the government of Germany likes taxing prostitution, and they came up with something new that would require taxation, and so they have legalized bestiality in the whorehouses. What am I saying? Sex with animals is legal in houses of ill repute. And why? Because it creates more business, which means more taxes. And so the government of Germany, this is stupid what I'm going to tell you, last year passed a law saying, hey, okay, you can have bestiality in with the prostitutes, but it's going to be taxed. It's legal. The joke of it all is that pornography, bestiality porn, It's illegal. You can't make a video of bestiality porn, but it's okay to go and watch it or even participate with the animal in a house of ill repute because there's more tax money they can grab. Which brings me to something else this week. These things keep coming up. I'm going to tell you about the TripAdvisor, and it's really not TripAdvisor itself, of prostitution in Germany. What's happened now is there is a new app. It's about a year old. I just learned about it, called Pepper, P-E-P-P-R, P-E-P-P-R. It's a new app. It uses GPS to connect prostitutes with potential clients. And what it does is, it runs the prostitutes' pictures are run. First of all, you bring up the app. You then answer several questions. Color hair, person, Asian, black, what have you, white, basic weight, big boobs, small boobs, excuse the way I put it. And you also check off what you're looking for, whether it be oral copulation, straight sex, or bestiality, all right? And then this app brings up to you those people in the area you have selected that fit your qualifications, okay? All right. Now, that doesn't shock me, okay? What shocks me is this part of it, is that when the customer is done, he is permitted to write in and evaluate the prostitute or the service he received. It's like a TripAdvisor. They write in the customers and say, she was good at this, she was bad at that. I give her 3 stars, 5 stars, what have you. And I can't believe this. A TripAdvisor, and it's not TripAdvisor, I'm not insulting TripAdvisor here, but it's a form of TripAdvisor for German prostitution. Now, the Washington Post came out with an analysis this past week. Interesting analysis. I want to share it with you. This year, through the first 5 months, through the month of May, 385 people have been shot by police officers. In 5 months this year, the first 5 months, 385 persons have been shot by police officers. I'm not saying black, I'm not saying white, I'm not saying yellow, purple, green. The article just said 385. Well, that's a lot. That's more than last year. That's more than any year, and we're only 5 months into the year. And it is evidence that something has to be wrong in the police relationship with the community. It isn't working right anymore, and something must be done. And I'm going to tell you right now, watch what happened in, Cleveland or Baltimore. They came down with this consent order of the federal government. I think it was Baltimore. Let me tell you something. That federal consent order is going to straighten that town out in about 5 to 10 years because the federal government sits on their shoulders of the police officers. They have to meet certain standards, do things a certain way. They have to take certain courses. I know consent orders. I worked with them all the time in environmental law with the federal government sitting on my shoulders, okay? It's going to work the same way with regard to policemen, and the federal government's going to, within 2 or 3 years, it's going to have consent orders with all the major communities in this country. Well, good show. I liked it. I hope you liked it. That's the show for this week. I thank you for joining me. I enjoy doing this, and I appreciate your listening in. I appreciate the comments I receive from you. You don't always agree with me, but you enjoy listening. That's all I require. Listen. Food for thought, as I call it. This show is archived on Blog Talk Radio immediately. You can listen to it whenever you want for the next year or two. It's also archived on YouTube and on Facebook under my websites, Key West Lou and Louis Patrone. This show shows up also in archive fashion immediately. I wrote a book, as you know, The World Upside Down. It's available on Amazon.com. If you like this show, buy my book, read it. It's $3.95. No, it's $13 and something, but it's only $3 and something if you read it on the internet. If you like the show, you'll love the book. If you don't like the show, don't buy the book. You will hate it. Thank you again for joining me. I look forward to being with you next week.